All right, so you're getting ready to launch a business.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's huge. And we've been digging through all the materials you sent us about getting the legal side of things squared away, especially choosing the right structure for your business. And, it seems like you're really wrestling with this quotient of DIY or lawyer up.
Big question.
It is a big question. And, it's one of those decisions that has some pretty serious long-term consequences.
Absolutely.
And looking through these sources, it seems like there are some surprising pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement of a new business idea.
Right.
And just think of the legal stuff as like a box to check.
Yeah.
But it really does have a big impact on pretty much every aspect of how your business is going to work.
I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, we're talking taxes, liability, how you're going to bring in investors down the road, even what happens if you decide to close up shop someday.
Oh, yeah.
It all goes back to that legal foundation that you set up right now.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn how many different structures are actually out there.
Oh, yeah.
The source material was mentioning sole proprietorships, partnerships, LLCs, corporations, even nonprofits.
Right.
Like I knew there were options, but I didn't realize there were quite that many.
Yeah, and seeing them all laid out like that, I think really highlights how much thought you really need to put into this decision.
Absolutely.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, picking the wrong structure can lead to some pretty significant legal and financial headaches later on.
Oh, yeah.
One of the sources had this great analogy.
Okay.
Imagine you choose a sole proprietorship for your e-commerce business, and then you get hit with a lawsuit.
Oh.
Because you and the business are legally considered the same entity under that structure.
Right.
Your personal assets, like your house, your car savings, all that stuff could be at risk.
That's scary.
Yeah. An LLC, on the other hand, would have provided a legal shield between your personal assets and the business.
So that would have been a better choice.
Yeah. That's a pretty big aha moment, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we've made it clear why choosing the right structure is so important.
Yeah.
But let's tackle this big question. DIY or lawyer up?
Yeah.
It seems like there's no easy answer.
There really isn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
The DIY approach is definitely tempting, especially when you're first starting out and, every dollar counts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the source material highlighted how much you can save by handling the paperwork yourself.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars, depending on the complexity.
Yeah, lawyer fees can be pretty intimidating, especially when you're just getting started.
Yeah.
But besides just saving money,
Yeah.
Doing it yourself can also be a really fantastic learning experience. You're kind of forced to really dig into the legal side of your business.
Yeah.
Which is valuable knowledge, even if you do end up hiring a lawyer later on.
Yeah. It can be really empowering to take ownership of that process.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, there are a lot more resources available now than ever before to help entrepreneurs navigate that legal setup.
It seems like there are new websites popping up every day.
There are online platforms and software tools that can guide you step by step.
Oh, wow.
Often for a fraction of the cost of hiring a lawyer.
They make it so much less intimidating than trying to decipher all that legal jargon yourself.
Yeah.
So it sounds like DIY has a lot going for it.
Yeah.
But the sources were also pretty clear about the potential downsides.
For sure.
What really stuck out to me was just the sheer complexity of business formation.
Right.
It's not just federal regulations.
No.
You have to navigate state and even local rules.
Yeah.
It's easy to overlook something crucial when you're doing it yourself.
That's definitely one of the biggest risks with DIY.
Yeah.
While those online platforms can be helpful, they often rely on generic templates and forms that may not really take into account all the specific nuances of your business or the industry that you're in.
They're not really tailored to you?
It's kind of like using a generic workout plan from a magazine.
Okay.
Instead of working with a trainer who can tailor a program to your specific goals and needs.
Right.
You might see some results, but you could be missing out on key elements that would optimize your progress.
That makes a lot of sense. And here's another thing that kind of gave me pause.
Okay.
When you're going the DIY route,
Yeah.
you're on your own when it comes to interpreting all those legal documents.
That's true.
There's no one to really ask, like, hey, what does this clause actually mean in my situation?
Right.
You're basically relying on your own understanding, which can feel pretty risky.
Yeah, especially when the stakes are high.
Oh, for sure.
Mistakes made during that business formation process can be incredibly costly to fix down the road.
I bet.
We're not just talking about like minor paperwork errors.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about things that could affect your liability, your tax obligations, even your ability to get funding or attract investors in the future.
Okay, so DIY definitely has its downsides.
Right.
But what about the other side of the coin? Yeah. What are the advantages of calling in a lawyer?
Well, first and foremost, you're getting personalized advice from a legal expert who understands all the ins and outs of business law.
Right.
It's not just about filling out the forms. It's about having someone there in your corner who can help you choose the absolute best structure for your specific goals and circumstances. They can walk you through all the implications of each option and help you weigh the pros and cons in terms of liability, taxation, all that good stuff.
It's like having a guide leading you through the wilderness.
Right?
Instead of trying to navigate on your own with just a compass and a map.
Yeah, there's definitely a peace of mind that comes with knowing a pro is handling everything correctly.
For sure.
Plus, lawyers, they don't just fill out forms.
Right.
They draft those legal documents that are tailored to your specific business needs.
Yeah, we're talking operating agreements, bylaws, shareholder agreements. These are crucial documents that lay out how your business is going to be run, who has what responsibilities, and how profits are going to be distributed. It's
like your business constitution, and a lawyer can help make sure that all those documents are airtight and protect everyone's interests.
That's so important. And, I think having a lawyer involved can also boost your credibility.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're dealing with investors, partners, anyone who needs to see that you're taking your legal obligations seriously.
It shows that you're professional and you're in it for the long haul.
So it sounds like lawyers bring a lot to the table.
Yeah.
But of course, there's the big elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah.
The cost. Yeah, the sources were pretty upfront about how expensive lawyers can be.
They can be.
And for some startups, especially those who are bootstrapping, that can be a major roadblock.
It's definitely a valid concern.
Yeah.
Legal fees can be a significant expense, especially if your business structure is really complex or if you need ongoing legal support.
But maybe it's important to think of that cost as an investment.
Yeah.
In the long-term success of your business.
Like preventative medicine spending a little now to avoid much bigger problems down the road.
That's a great way to think about it. Okay, so we've explored the pros and cons of both DIY and hiring a lawyer. And it's clear that there's no easy answer.
Right.
How can entrepreneurs actually decide which path is right for them?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
What are some of the key factors to consider?
Well, the sources we've been looking at actually highlighted a few key questions that can help you figure out the best path for you.
Okay.
The first one is all about complexity.
Okay. So how complex is your business setup?
Right. If you've got multiple owners, international operations, or you're in a heavily regulated industry.
Like what kind of industries are we talking about?
Think healthcare finance or anything with strict licensing requirements.
Oh, yeah.
The sources were pretty adamant that in those situations, you should really bring in a lawyer.
It makes sense. Those situations sound pretty complicated.
They are. They often involve navigating a whole bunch of legal and regulatory hurdles.
Yeah.
That can be really tough to handle on your own, even with all the online resources out there.
So it sounds like the stakes are just too high to risk making a mistake.
Exactly. And another big factor is budget, which we've already touched on.
Right.
It's tempting to think DIY is always the most budget-friendly option.
Yeah, especially when you're starting out.
But one of the sources made a really interesting point.
Okay.
Sometimes DIY can actually be riskier financially in the long run.
How so?
It's like that old saying, penny wise and pound foolish. You might save some money up front by handling things yourself. But if you make a mistake, the cost to fix it down the road could totally outweigh those initial savings.
Ouch. Yeah, I'd rather not think about that.
It could even jeopardize your whole business.
Okay, so budget is a factor, but it's not just about the initial cost. It's about understanding the potential long-term risks, too.
Exactly. What else should entrepreneurs be considering?
Right. What else?
Well, time and expertise are huge.
Okay.
Do you realistically have the time to dedicate to understanding all the legal ins and outs?
That's your chosen structure.
Yeah. And do you have the expertise to correctly interpret and apply those requirements to your specific situation?
That's a good point. A lot of people probably don't.
If the answer to either of those is no, then a lawyer might be the wiser choice.
It makes me think about that saying, work on your business, not in your business.
Oh, yeah.
You could be the most passionate entrepreneur in the world.
Right.
But that doesn't make you a legal expert.
Exactly.
Spending all those hours deciphering legal documents might not be the best use of your time.
Right.
When you could be focusing on building your product or connecting with customers.
All those other exciting parts of actually launching a business?
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note,
okay.
Another factor the sources highlighted is risk tolerance.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
How comfortable are you with taking on risk? Because hiring a lawyer definitely helps to mitigate legal risk.
It does.
But of course, it comes at a cost.
Right.
DIY can be riskier,
Yeah.
but it also gives you more control and potentially saves you money.
It's all about finding that balance.
So it sounds like there's no magic formula.
Nope.
Which can be a little frustrating.
It can be.
But it's also kind of realistic. I mean, every business is different. Every entrepreneur has different strengths and weaknesses, different levels of risk tolerance.
That's the beauty of it.
I thought it would be helpful to look at some real-world examples from the sources.
Yeah, good idea.
Just to see how all these factors can actually play out in practice.
Let's start with like the simplest scenario.
Yeah.
A one-person online business.
Like an e-commerce store or a freelance writing service.
Exactly. The sources suggested that kind of setup might be totally fine to DIY.
Okay.
Especially with those online legal platforms we talked about earlier.
Right.
They can walk you through setting up an LLC, getting your EN. That's your employer identification number, basically like a social security number for your business.
Okay.
And creating a simple operating agreement, which outlines how your business is going to be run.
So for those solopreneurs out there, keeping it simple, DIY can be a good option.
It can be, but what about like a tech startup seeking investment?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other ballgame.
That's where things get a lot more complex.
Your way.
Well, when you bring investors into the picture, you're dealing with things like intricate corporate structures, equity agreements, intellectual property considerations.
Things that those DIY platforms probably can't handle.
Exactly. And in this scenario, the sources were very clear.
What did they say?
Hire a lawyer.
Okay, so lawyer up.
It's essential if investors want to see that you're taking the legal side of things seriously.
Makes sense.
A lawyer can make sure everything is structured correctly and everyone's interests are protected.
Okay, last example from the sources.
All right, hit me.
A family-owned restaurant.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I feel like this one has the potential to get a little messy.
It can be, starting a business with family can be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also like ripe for potential conflict.
I can imagine.
If expectations and responsibilities aren't clear from the start.
Right, like who's doing what and who gets what.
Exactly. The source pointed out that a lawyer can actually be a really valuable asset in this situation.
How so?
By helping to prevent future drama.
Oh, that's interesting.
They can craft those crucial legal documents, partnership agreements, operating agreements that clearly spell out everyone's roles, responsibilities, and how profits will be shared.
So it's all about setting those expectations up front.
Right.
To minimize misunderstandings and hurt feelings down the road.
It's like having a legal referee.
I love it. A lawyer as a family mediator.
It's a good reminder that legal expertise isn't just about navigating regulations.
Yeah.
It's also about building a really strong and stable foundation for the business.
And for the relationships within it.
Exactly. So after going through all of this, I think it's clear there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to DIY versus lawyer.
Right.
It's all about evaluating those key factors we talked about.
Complexity budget, time expertise, risk tolerance.
Yeah, all of that.
And choosing the approach that just feels like the best fit for your unique situation.
You got it. And hey, even if you are leaning towards DIY, an initial consultation with the lawyer can still be super valuable.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of lawyers offer these consultations for a reasonable fee.
So it's not a huge investment.
And it's a great way to get some personalized advice. Ask those, what does this mean for me? questions. And just make sure you're on the right track before you dive head first into the DIY process.
It's like getting a professional blueprint before you start building your house.
Exactly. Speaking of building, that brings us to a final thought for you, dear listener.
Okay, let's hear it.
As you embark on this exciting journey of starting your own business.
This decision about your legal structure, it's not just a formality.
It's not. It's about laying the groundwork for the future that you're building.
So don't just focus on what's cheapest or easiest right now in the short term.
No, think about what's going to give your business the best chance to really thrive 5, 10, even 20 years down the line.
That's a good point. What kind of legacy do you want to build? It's like planting a tree, you know? Sure, you could just stick it in the ground and hope for the best.
Right.
But if you really want it to flourish,
yeah,
you're going to take the time to choose the right location, prepare the soil, give it the support it needs.
Give it what it needs to grow.
To grow strong and weather any storms.
Exactly.
Your business deserves that same kind of care and attention.
I love that analogy.
You know, going through all this research with you, I'm feeling inspired to learn even more about the legal side of things.
Oh, that's awesome.
It might not be the most glamorous part of starting a business.
It's not always the most fun.
But it's definitely one of the most crucial.
For sure.
It's like, once you see how much it impacts everything.
You can't unsee it.
I totally agree. And hey, maybe after this deep dive, you'll be the one giving legal advice to other aspiring entrepreneurs.
Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be something?
Sharing your knowledge, helping others navigate these decisions.
Yeah.
You never know where this journey will lead.
I love that thought.
Yeah.
All right, dear listener. We've armed you with knowledge insights and hopefully a few laughs along the way.
We try to keep it fun.
Now go out there and make those legal decisions with confidence.
You've got that.
We're cheering you on every step of the way.
And remember, we're always here for you if you ever need another deep dive to help you untangle those tricky business questions. Just send over your sources and we'll be happy to unpack them together. Happy entrepreneuring.